highly motivated group of parents and teachers come together to fill the linguistic and cultural needs that their children have that are not being met through mainstream education. What we usually see with heritage learners is that they have really strong oral skills and they can communicate fluently in the language, but usually they're lacking the literacy skills that they have in the dominant language. So these are the gaps that heritage language education tries to fill. For someone who speaks a heritage language, that language is part of who they are, their identity, their history, their origin, and it shapes the way they understand the world and their own place within the world. So of course we need to foster heritage languages and maintain heritage languages because we have to help children reach their full potential and embrace their multilingual and multicultural identities.
It's even not allowing kind of a hierarchy of languages to be present in your classroom. And I think maybe as someone who was born in Ireland and grew up in Ireland, we'd have just done a modern foreign language in secondary school. I would, if I was trying to use another language, it might be easy for me just to like lean into that and just focus on that because I have some knowledge of it. But I suppose getting away from that and focusing on all languages in the school. I'd love to see a connection between schools and heritage language schools and other people coming in to offer more advice to me and other teachers, and I think that might encourage other teachers to use language more often. I know it is represented in the primary language curriculum, but having said that, there's been no kind of guidance given on how we are to use it. It's there as in things can be in multiple languages or you can explore texts in various languages if suitable. But I think as a teacher I'd love more clarification on that. I'd love more training in that. I'd love to see experts come in and work within schools, so heritage language experts. But yeah, definitely I think there's definitely a way to go. So a lot of the kids in my class who speak different languages, they go to schools. For example, in my class, they go to a Polish language school where they learn Polish, reading, writing, and speaking Polish. They learn Polish history, all different aspects of their culture, and they do that on a Saturday. There's absolutely no connection between my school and that school, but the kids in my class go there every Saturday, and they learn. Like they tell me that they learn language, they learn oral reading and writing in their home or first language. And they learn about the history and the culture and their culture, and they do that every week. But there's absolutely, I don't know the teacher in that school. That teacher doesn't know me, which is a real shame, because I think there's definitely connections that can be made. And there's probably kids going to other schools, other heritage language schools that I don't even know about. But I'd love if there was a connection between the two schools, because it would help the kids. It would help me in my practice. It would possibly help them in their practice in the heritage language school.
These students who were coming mostly from Mexico or Central America, or their parents were coming from these countries, had gotten all sorts of negative messages about Spanish growing up. So they told me stories about not being allowed to speak Spanish in class or at work, or even being insulted for speaking Spanish in public. So they internalized this negative messages about Spanish, and they started speaking less and less Spanish. The Spanish became weaker, and these messages were also internalized by their parents, because their parents were told by doctors and teachers that they really needed to focus on English, that their children were getting confused, that they were going to be behind their classmates. So of course parents did what they thought it was best for them, for their children, and they started focusing on English and not really helping them develop their Spanish. So let's move forward a few years in the future, and then suddenly these students are at the university level and they have to take Spanish because there's a foreign language requirement at the university. So these students have been deprived of a gift growing up. They have been deprived of their heritage language, And suddenly they get to university and the message is, oh, now your heritage language is useful and actually you're not good enough. So this really makes no sense in terms of anything, in terms of even when we think about resources. But most of all, it is really sad because students came to me saying that they wanted to take my class because they wanted to reconnect with their language and reconnect with their culture, and they said that they really regretted not having fostered their Spanish, and they wished their parents had forced them to speak Spanish. And that's really sad that they had to get to that point, that they had to get to university to reconnect with their heritage language and culture. But the good news is that we don't have to repeat those patterns, because there's lots of research now that says that bilingualism is very beneficial, that is very important to promote bilingualism in the early years. So that's what we need to do. And not only because we can do it and because we have the resources to do it, but because it's the right thing to do.